Morning, everyone. Morning. Like to call this meeting to order. We could do roll call, please, Jake.
Keisha Johnner,
Here.
Mark Ramey,
Here.
Steve McComb. Here.
I will entertain a motion for approval of today's special session agenda.
I make a motion, we approve today's agenda. Second.
McCombs.
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye. On to business. We are continuing our discussions for budget sessions. And this morning we have up Veteran Affairs, Mike Coon. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
Morning.
Happy to see you all here smiling yet after the long week.
We're here.
Yeah,
All good.
good.
Mike, if you would, you want to just go over your budget a little bit? Is there any big changes? When looking through it, I don't see anything significant other than
No, I raised it $18.
you raised it $18.
That's how it came out. No, I took some money out of a couple areas a little bit so I could adjust two other areas. The grave marker area in expenses has increased considerably because of the cost of flags that we put in the cemeteries and some of those things, and grave markers. So I went over that line item this year significantly. So I did some adjustments. So I feel better when I pay the bill. Basically, that's all it has to do with that. And in miscellaneous, that went to 660 from hardly anything because that's where my cell phone reimbursement comes out of. So that's where I use that for. So
Okay.
Other than that, there's no changes. Salary increase, it was 5% I put in. I don't have any big issues with the budget. I don't know that I need that much, but things could change. So as far as rents and utilities and food, that type of thing. So my biggest thing is just basically now helping veterans with compensation, disabilities, widows, nursing homes, that type of thing. I get a monthly report from the federal government out of Des Moines that comes out and shows every county how many veterans they're serving that month and how much money is coming in. As of the December report that I got, we serve 697 veterans with compensation. We bring in a little over $1 million a month for those people. So that includes DIC, it includes survivor benefits, life pensions, and compensation.
So you're saying $1 million that's coming within the county because of those receiving that compensation benefit?
Correct.
Okay.
And that varies from month to month, depending on deaths and add-ons. So it's a continuation of flexibility, but when you look at other counties in here and you compare counties our size, we're significantly ahead of them. So I've got no complaints there.
How are the numbers? Are you seeing it be pretty stagnant or are you seeing increase? Because can you go any further on that?
I think it's planed off
Okay.
because of the number of people receiving them already. And I think that affects whether I have people coming in for rent or food or whatever. I could say probably off the cuff, half a dozen, maybe a month I help now compared to when it was a lot more way back when. So I'm happy with what we're doing commission wise and with the veterans in Marion County.
Gord, do you have any-
Good. Yeah, no questions. So good.
All right.
No, I have none either. Thank you for what you do, Mike.
Appreciate all the work
Thank
you
you.
do, Mike.
I will say one thing, I've got a good commission. I don't have to argue with them like other counties do. Otherwise, I'd be wearing battle fatigue uniforms to work. But Jody's been our chair for several years. She got reelected unanimously again because she called in on the
Congratulations.
because she called in on the phone
Ah,
And I will say, anytime I need a commissioner for anything, signing an IVH, Iowa Veterans Home application, before I notarize it all, I just have to call them and they come in and they do that and things flow pretty smoothly. I just like to have more people come in. I sit out there in the hallway and I try to bring people in, you know, if they come in, and that helps sometimes, but basically I just tell people how to use the elevator.
Do they, I mean, because they're catching them when they're leaving the military more now than obviously showing up necessarily asking you, because
Part of the out processing.
how about like DD 214s? I mean, I know that the veterans I deal with, especially families, oftentimes, do you see that a lot of people are coming to you to try to get those forms and?
Yeah, that's always ongoing.
Mhm.
I'll have people come in for one reason or another that want to have a copy of their father's discharge, for example, or the veteran's discharge. And I'll approve that depending on what the situation is. A lot of times it's just for family history.
Yeah.
You know, to get the medals that the veteran had gotten or whatever, to continue that on. It's not a daily thing. I get calls from other counties because the veteran's in that county now, and the recorders always send them down to me to get permission to email me that, and I email that document then forward. So works out pretty good that way.
good.
Thank you, Mike.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jody, for coming.
Yes,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you.
So. Okay, before we go on to conservation, there was a couple of things that as a board, I'd like us to be able to discuss. And that would be compensation board. We have that sheet here. I know that Mark and I had put in our proposal, the 50%. I am still at the 50%. But as a board, I'd like us to discuss and see if we're where we are all at. Yeah, if you haven't, Renee, that would be great.
Yeah, if you pull it up, that'd be perfect. I'll just thumb through this thing.
Okay. So we are very thankful that Jake does this for us, in the response of doing this where we can have 100% and then there's different categories that he gives us options. Now, it's my understanding that the proposal Mark had pulled out was the option 1 at 50% and option 2 at 40%. I am thankful that the compensation board meets and they give this recommendation, and then ultimately we as Board of Supervisors during budget session, we then review and see where we're at. And so at this point,
So
I think
Keisha, maybe highlight what our authority is regarding that. I think everybody needs to be reminded of that
Yeah.
every year.
no. So the compensation meets, and for those of the public that don't know, for the electeds, we have representation that on our behalf advocates on what we would for salaries. And so that a lot of times they look within counties with this, we're at the 22nd percentile. And so that is a recommendation of trying to stay within that. And then obviously the sheriff has a little bit different dynamic in which the blue, in which the compensation board looks at there, and they're able to compare other counties, other cities of similar size. But ultimately, this is a recommendation, and the code specifically says that. Actually, they say it 6 different times. It's a recommendation for the Board of Supervisors to be able to review. And then we can take this, and we have to do equal amounts if we were going to reduce. We cannot increase, we can only reduce, or we can receive it at 100%.
So, and then the only line item that we have, the only thing we can line item out is our own, which we
Yep.
did, which we did last year. So the supervisors received 0 last year for raises. The other thing Keisha highlighted, but I want to reiterate, we've heard a lot of discussion about what the governor did regarding law enforcement with the law. Well, the Back the Blue legislation, which reformulated how law enforcement's comp board recommendations were derived did not change or alter the authority of the Board of Supervisors to take those recommendations. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that our legal authority is still in place. Didn't change that at all. But it did change the way that comp boards were to calculate the proposed compensation for the sheriff.
Yeah, we've struggled with this a lot. This is the second year we're struggling with this issue. Obviously, we're going to follow the law in the long run. But I don't know that I'm ready to do that. I'm at the 50% level myself for this year. It's tough. It's tough when we have to meet that and the other elected officials are involved in this process. It makes it real difficult for us. But I'm at the 50% level now also.
Okay, that sounds like
Yeah, we have.
we'll make a motion to adopt option. I'll make a motion to adopt option 1, 50% of the comp board recommendation.
I'll second.
Sorry.
That's all right.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye. While we just finished compensation board, I would like to make sure there's some clarity in regarding, we talked about 5% buckets. And I want to remind people that we use the term in our board as the bucket in our proposal. So when we said 5% salary increase, we said we're talking 5% bucket. It's not what we did last year. So I want to make sure that all department heads understand that. And then for the road department, we did a 6.5% bucket. Okay, and then I would like to discuss libraries. And that is number 33.
Have that recommendation. No, all right. I'm just trying to be lazy really, and not have to thumb through my book. That's all right. What number was that, Keisha?
Number 33.
30.
So in the past, last several years, we have done the 95,000 total. But I think and last year we did something unique. We did different increments. And so before they did their matrix, which was, I believe it was the 5,000 base, and then they divvied upon their rule circulation. Then last year, either it was myself or I'm not for sure, but we as a board adopted that Pella received 30,000, Knoxville received 20,000, and then Bussey, Pleasantville, and Melcher Dallas received 15. As you can go back and look, we can see this as a board and on our budgets. In years past, in 2021, 2020 to 2021, it was roughly Knoxville received 23,298, Pella received 53,544, and then Butsy received 4495. Pleasantville received 7,438, and Melcher Dallas received 6,228. So that's how kind of an example of what their matrix would be divided up. So we heard from them. Obviously, I think let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 of them. 4 out of the 5 wanted the matrix. Pleasantville wanted to be able to have their 15,000 again. Board, do we have any thoughts?
I think legally, we're way above the amount that we have to
Yeah.
give. I mean, I think I can't remember what that number is, 60.
About 60,000.
60,000,
yeah.
69, I can't remember now.
It's in that ballpark.
And I
Yeah.
think they were requesting another 5,000, so it'd be 100,000 is what they were
Well,
requesting.
Steve's talking about the actual levy.
Yeah, the
Jake,
actual levy.
do you have that?
Yeah, I can find out what that number is.
In the 60,000 range.
Yeah, I think you're close, Steve. Yeah.
when looking in the past, I mean, typically Pella receives 50, about, if it's 50%, and then Knoxville receives 25% of that, those funds, and then the rest is divvied up, in smaller amounts. Mark, you had spoke before, we have helped Knoxville and Pella. And I think that's kind of how I derived last year. And when I say helped, we helped them with, Prairie Ridge and Knoxville. We're helping with the VA ground. I think last year we tried to maybe give a little bit more to those smaller libraries. And that's where I looked at it to see what they could do. But it seems like they kind of maybe struggled with that a little bit, other than Pleasantville. They weren't for sure, what to do with those and how to plan for the future. So.
Well, if it's too much money, we sure don't want to give people too much money and they don't know what, and it just sits on the sidelines. I mean, we want to be effective in our
Yeah.
use of the dollars. That being said, Keisha, you're exactly right. My view is, especially for Knoxville and Pella, the taxpayers of Marion County have already contributed significantly in partnering with them for economic development. So, I mean, those are large outlays of 10.7, actually a total of 11.1 for Knoxville and 4.7 for Pella, and there'll be more requests, I'm sure, that will come. So my view is, I think last year I even wanted less for Knoxville and Pella on this because I wanted to bring it down to the actual levy amount. Then the rationale is I would rather deploy those dollars in economic development. And I get it. You serve the rural communities and you serve the cities. But as I've talked to all the city managers, there's got to be a trade a little bit for the dollars that are expended, which includes our rural residents in assisting in economic development. So they need to get some credit for that. So that's my view is these need to come down. They don't always go up. Because the cities are getting a benefit already from the rural residents. And the smaller libraries, they just don't have the mechanism to derive income. So driving from one location to the other, I think is more of a hardship for them. So that was the rationale last year for that.
I am here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
So,
But
yeah,
but you need to recognize.
Yeah, we're, at this point, we're just discussing. We'll ask you questions in just a little bit if we have one. So, yeah. I am, when looking at this, I don't necessarily have a problem with the 95,000, but I guess, I mean,
Distribution.
the distribution. I still would like to give Melcher-Dallas their Pleasantville their 15,000, and then the derivative of the rest.
I mean, if Bussey and Melcher don't want that allotment, then you can redistribute that. If you two are going to land on 95, then redistribute that allotment between the other libraries.
And we could do
Right.
the base. They can, if we wanted to, we could do Pleasantville, the 15,000, and then the base, they asked for their 5,000 base, and then their matrix, which I'm assuming it's Pella's going to get 50% of that, and then
However they-
25,
however they
however
do
their
that, yeah.
matrix is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, the only library that I've seen a financial statement on was the Pleasantville Library. So I was very appreciative that they brought that. So I know where they're at financially and they're doing the best that they can, being a newly acquired rural library. The others, I really don't know where they're at. So
and we
Anyway.
could always submit those reports to you.
sure. Well, I think that would be helpful, when you guys present, you don't have to do that this year. But I think it would be helpful to know the financial condition of the libraries that we're supporting. Again, if the taxpayers are going to be asked through economic development dollars to bond, essentially borrow against their valuation to help support housing, which will grow the cities and grow the
The
tax
libraries,
base
yep.
for these libraries, they should get some credit for that. So I'm not specifically saying libraries shouldn't get money. I'm just saying that the rural residents are already helping do that through other means. It's just longer duration. Because just like everybody else, we have to wait for those housing projects to materialize, grow, and add value, whether it's taxable valuation or new people. But that's a better investment, really, when you talk about property tax dollars,
Mhm,
than it is to continue to put it into fixed structures.
mhm. So a lot of our funding comes from the city. I'm speaking for Knoxville.
Mhm.
I would say about 80% of our total budget comes from the city and, percentage that we get from the county also.
Mhm.
So we break it up because of property tax and the special levy in Knoxville. Every man, woman, or child in the city, within the city of Knoxville, pays about $35 a year for use of the library. Rural residents pay, depending, based on that, rural residents pay about $8. But we have the same services for city residents and rural residents, so it's unequal, the amount that we get from the city.
Yeah, and I
from the
understand,
county.
but do you understand what I'm saying when I'm talking about rural residents are paying through their property taxes
Mhm,
to help support
mhm,
massive economic development projects within these
Mhm.
cities? And so they may not be paying the same allotment as city residents versus rural as it pertains specifically to the libraries.
mhm.
My question would be, to any city service where you serve rural residents, do the rural residents get any credit for helping support those economic development projects that are they're going to benefit all of Marion County? They're certainly going to benefit the cities. Do they get any credit for that? Because those are big projects and long duration that hit your taxes every year for the next, whatever the duration of the bonds are, 17 years, 20 years. That's my contention. It's not that we shouldn't support the libraries, but do those rural residents get any credit for that? And I think that they should, because the cities are going to be the more direct beneficiaries of that economic growth and those projects than the rural folks are. So that's why I'm not saying you go to zero, but I'm saying that do you continue to support those same allotments and redistribute those dollars for other purposes? That might be for economic development. Carla wants a new position, wants to hire somebody, or do you keep it at the same level? That's why I would support reductions. And then you support the libraries that actually need the financial help more, which are the ones in the more rural areas. They just don't have the money to support them to the same degree Knoxville and Pella have
I see
cash.
what you're saying. Okay. It's just, when you look at the numbers of rural circulation, and because Pella and Knoxville are bigger libraries, we do serve a bigger portion of the rural.
Absolutely.
residents too.
Absolutely. No, understand.
Yeah.
Understand. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's a good discussion to have. And it would be an interesting, and we haven't done any math on it. So it's really a hypothetical on my position to say that the rural folks, and because of the increase on their taxes, what that credit should be. I don't know. We couldn't do a dollar for dollar comparison because of the duration, but I think there needs to be something. So,
Yeah, and you saw the spreadsheet on how the dollars are distributed
Mhm.
with all of the 90
Oh, yeah.
counties.
Oh, yeah.
And so
absolutely.
Marion County.
And you guys
is-
do a great job. Libraries do a great job. We have wonderful libraries. But when we're talking about scarce resources, how do we best deploy those resources? That's what we're trying to sort through, given some of the other initiatives we've undertaken. So, Jake, did you get that number, Jake?
So, excuse me, so you are required, the county is required to levy 6 3/4 cents for libraries. And then that comes out to $62,426.
So Steve, yeah.
That's based off of the current approved valuations.
Right.
Yeah, so we're about 33,000 above that. Well-
That's the minimum.
Which is Carla's position.
Yeah.
Which naturally I would rather not see us go down because we do a lot for the
Mhm.
county.
Yeah, thank you. I understand.
Oh, I'm willing to keep it at the 95,000, but do that split amongst the smaller libraries again at that rate we discussed earlier.
You mean last year's?
Yeah,
Uh,
well, 5,000, Bussy and Melcher, that's just like Mark said, I don't know what their financial situation is, whether they're gonna spend it or not.
Yeah.
They only asked for 5, Pleasantville asked for 15, but divvy it up that way and then let the matrix do the rest of it. That's where I'm at.
Well,
Somebody make a motion.
you want to make that motion, Steve, or?
I don't know how to say it.
So Steve, I want to make sure I understand. Are you saying stay at the 95 and let the matrix determine the
No.
distribution? Or are you saying stay at 95 and
Do the 15 for Pleasantville as they asked, because they showed their
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
finances.
Yep.
Give the 5,000 like to the smaller libraries like
base-
they asked
the
in their
base rate.
presentation.
and let the remainder
And
be
let the
distributed?
remainder be split up by the matrix that they have in place.
Did you get that?
Yeah, I just as a point of clarification, because the librarians always help, they have those circulation numbers. Is Pleasantville numbers included in that so how do they, it's gonna change the percentages.
So it'd
Well,
be
they'll have to
just
figure that out.
That's their on their end.
But-
Figure what use their matrix.
between Rosslyn and the 4, then
So
figure
what
out
they
the-
would, what
this-
they would do, Jake, is take the total amount, subtract 15 for Pleasantville and
Mhm.
do their matrix for
do
the
their
rest.
5,000
And
base.
5 for Bussy and
Or,
Melcher.
yeah, they
The
take out the
5,000
5.
base.
The distribution is just with the
So you're going to take
numbers of the 4.
80, 70. So Knoxville and Pella will distribute 70,000 between them. That's what it really turns out to be.
Well, Bussy and Melcher would get, they get their 5,000
Yep.
base and then the matrix kicks in.
But I guess what I'm trying to, is Pleasantville's numbers included?
No, Pleasantville would get the
So the
$15,000
total
flat.
amount, the percentages that will be just between the 4 distributions, that'll be the 100% of, and then the remainder will be split by the percentages of the 4.
Right.
Correct.
Does
Got it.
that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I believe so.
So we have a motion. And Jake, you have it down?
I think so.
All right, and I'll second that.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Roll call. You want to?
Oh, sorry. Ramey,
A soft no,
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
a loving no.
Oh, good, appreciate that. Okay. We will now, have conservation. Steve.
Before we
Unless-
do that, Keisha, I want to.
Oh, sorry, hang on, Steve. I
Hold on,
think
Steve. You're
Mark
not up
wanted to
yet.
have a couple slides. That's right.
Reverse that.
I backed that up.
So I wanted to show a few slides. The way that I've done budgets and this I'm speaking for me. For the last, how long have we done this, Jake? Together? 11 years? 10 years? Long time. What I try to do when I look at data to contextualize where we're at, you've heard during the course of our discussions, people talk about the economy, talk about Marion County, talk about whether it's back the blue legislation, whatever those things are. This is the stuff that I've done for my career. And so I've got a few slides up here just to give some context to the way I think about finances, not just in arrears, but going forward. So this first slide is the residential housing component of GDP for the fourth quarter that we just ended. So the last quarter of 2022. So when we talk about housing, because housing is a major driver of the revenues that Marion County receives, we can see in this chart that number has deteriorated markedly, right? It's still up on a year-over-year basis in terms of the investment in private housing, but it's down significantly from its peak, which was just off of coronavirus. and all the stimulus money that came from coronavirus. So this is a major component of what drives when we hear the number GDP, gross domestic product, was 2.9% for the fourth quarter. I think for the whole year for the US, it's going to come in just slightly above zero. First quarter of next year, or that we're in right now, probably goes negative. So people need to understand that from a macroeconomic standpoint, we may not be feeling all the impacts here yet, but we will. If you go to our larger metro areas, they're already seeing this decline in private housing investment. Next slide. So this again gets to housing. This is total new single-family homes sold on a year-over-year basis. So you can see my little headline up at the top underneath there. New single-family home sales fell 26% year-over-year in December, coming off a tremendous peak that was largely driven through stimulus dollars and cheap money. And this is one of the things I want to make sure everybody understands. The 10 years, and I'm being rounding here, from the great financial crisis to when Donald Trump started to initiate tariffs against China, which is really what started the wobble in our economy. Those 10 years of low interest rates, of monetary stimulus, that's not normal. That's just not normal economics. Most of you in your savings accounts received zero interest during those years. Your major drivers of growth were what? Asset inflation through housing and stock market, land prices. So those things shot up, which everybody saw in their what? Their assessments. But that was an abnormal period of truly negative interest rates. All right. And what we're seeing now is, as we are on the other side of all the stimulus dollars, we're starting to see things deteriorate. Now, maybe that goes back to norm, whatever the median is, but the data is saying that these numbers are deteriorating, not improving. We may not see those effects here yet, but on a national basis, we are. Next slide. So in nominal dollars, which is a comparative scale, what are people paying for homes? Well, they're still elevated. So you saw the deterioration in total investment, but still in terms of actual cost, things are still up on a year-over-year basis about 7.3% in terms of what people are paying for houses. But as you can see, and as I've told our risk group that I meet with on a periodic basis, it's about the rate of change. So you can see the peak and you can see how fast it's coming down. So that means overall investment in nominal dollars in housing, prices are falling, and they're falling fast. And you can obviously see on the chart the impact of coronavirus, both the impact of the shutdown and the impact of stimulus, massive distortion in those numbers. So you see my note? It's why it doesn't feel like a recession yet, because prices are still up on a year-over-year basis, but the slope of change is pretty dramatic. It's coming down fast. Next slide. And this really puts that slide in a different context to really say that it's prices on single-family homes when they're sold. So you have the other side was investment. The other side is what it actually is when it's sold. It's up 7.8%, similar to the last slide, but the rate of change in terms of it coming down is accelerating. Okay. So we just, do I have any more? Oh, one more. This is the last slide. We talk about wages. This is from the Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank, or the Fed. This is what they look at. This is one of the major drivers, one of the major charts they use when they determine what interest rate should be. When you hear the Fed funds rate, they have been talking about the wage spike. You can see the massive distortion that occurred during coronavirus. Look at that spike. That's stimulus driven. That's not economic driven. That was driven by an abnormal amount of money being pumped into the economy and wages inflated dramatically, higher than they've been. Well, and this chart goes back to 1998. But now look at the rate of change coming down. That's a straight line. Now, we'll see if that continues. All right, it's still early. They're still elevated on a year-over-year basis, but that rate of change is coming down fast. These are the things I look at to look forward when we set our budgets, because what we're really projecting, yes, we get the current property tax dollar estimates from Jake. That may change now based on what the Iowa legislature is doing. But we also have to think about where this budget will remain relative to future property tax dollars. Why? If you elevate expenditures too far, too fast, and these charts continue to go in the direction they're going, values could come down. Overall wages could come down, and we will be too high on a macro basis. And then what happens when you've got to reduce pay? Or you have to reduce expenses dramatically. So our job, Steve has said this, it's about the money, is to try to keep this as smooth as we can on a year-over-year basis to provide good benefits, reasonable wage growth, and a good work environment for our employees to provide the services our taxpayers expect. But if we don't look at these things, we're not doing our job. And so we've got to understand these things going forward, that it isn't what we lived through is not normal. And so making laws like what the governor did, those were wrong. And what our legislature will do is they will pass property tax reform based on what was and not what is. And they will get it wrong. They will overcorrect. Unless you got some people up there that know this stuff. And I don't know that, or they may not. I hope they do.
It's funny you mentioned this because this was just on the news this morning. And the economist, the so-called economists are confused.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting there watching that this morning, and it's basically what you're saying here.
Yeah. Yeah. And Steve, it's a great point. If you look at anybody, you're going to get some people saying it's going to be a soft landing. It's going to be a hard landing. It's going to be this landing. It's going to be that landing. The fact is they don't have a clue, because we've never lived through a period of this amount of money being pumped into the global economy at one time. This is the greatest bubble in human history financially. Maybe the tulip bubble would have been close. Okay. But we've never had this much money. And this is a global phenomenon. This isn't just the US. This is global.
Well, it's like we tried to say when they started pumping the stimulus, nothing's free.
And Steve, and we're going to see it, and we're going to see it in our numbers. So anyway, I provide that as context. Again, this is me, but when I talk about whether it's health insurance or salaries, these are the things I'm looking at on a forward look basis, because you have to do that when you're establishing a budget. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Nope. Appreciate that, Mark. Thank you. All right. Mr.
Steve?
Edwards.
Follow that. I dare you.
I am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The last department to come in. That's got to put a smile on your face, doesn't it? You
We
gotta
got
be in a
few
good
small
mood.
ones that we need to, but yes, I agree. Yes.
I use the same format every year. You've seen this every time I've come to present. So I try to be pretty transparent, especially on the financial end of it. So if we go to the financial breakdown, which is just after your green sheet, the total budget ask this year is $1,725,079. And I did use the 5% wage bucket except for one park ranger who is in his 4-year catch-up. He's a relatively new employee, so he will be finishing that, then he'll be making the same as the other rangers, but I did use your 5% bucket in the budget, so.
Thank you.
Under income generation for the budget, under camping fees, shelters, and the pavilion rental, I increased that amount to $544,600. That's an increase of $160,750 over our current budget. And the reason I did that, I used a 5-year matrix on the trend of recreation and camping in Marion County. And those figures that I used before and what I estimated were way low. So over the past 5 years, we've generated considerably more income than I actually put in the budget. So that was the reason for that. And that will offset some of the projects or potential employee we're asking for. We will pay for those through increased revenue. I know, Steve, in some earlier ones, you indicated that it's not so much the people, it's how do you pay for that? So we just happen to be in a unique position that we generate income and we can cover those positions. So online reservation fees, I increased 4,000 over the current year. And that is based on the increased number of reservations that we take. Normally in the state, we rank either first or second in the number of reservations taken online for cabins, camping, shelters, all of that stuff. The conservation reserve account, I did reduce that down to 100,000. We have 500,000 in the current budget. And the reason for that is because we had to move some funds around this year in the reserve account to cover the increased cost on the office building being constructed at Cordova. Those costs came in higher than we anticipated. The state excise tax, that's a tax that we collect on the cabins that is ultimately paid to the state of Iowa. We have to collect that. So that is an income. So our total revenue in the budget this year is 691,000, just a little bit shy of 700,000. So if I break that down into funds 1 and 2, our ask for fund 1 would be $809,045. Fund 2 would be $224,952, or a total of $1,033,977. Now that is roughly an increase of 48,000, which would be about 60% of our budget. And then we generate 40% of our budget, or 691,100. Now in the red, I have the reserve account. That's a negative 234,550 or 250, because we reduced that amount because we didn't need it. So total budget again, $1,725,079. We would generate 40% of that. The tax would be 60% of that. So any questions on that particular part of it?
No, and thank you for your explanation. I do think that's important. I would like to say that I think when I was first elected, I think this was like 34%, and now you've increased it to 40%, that your revenue that you produce, so for your budget. I know you and I have talked a little bit about the reservation fees and maybe looking at different options there. Have you been able to review any of that and regarding who we use for our internet, Neapolitan Labs? Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to Andrew about that.
Okay.
Recently, we had a conversation about a year ago. And I think Neapolitan Labs, they provide Pottawatomie County Conservation with their reservation system. So I'd like to talk to them and see how that works and if there's a cost savings there now.
Yeah.
So that's something that we want to explore.
Okay.
To try to reduce that cost and keep those funds in Marion County.
Yeah, I would
So-
love for, us to
Yeah,
maybe something
absolutely.
for next year that we can. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Major projects, if we turn to those, these are the knob turners. The board basically come up with about 4 this year, and some of them you're gonna see again from last year, because again, we had to move funds around to cover the cost of the Cordova office. We didn't want to have to come in and ask for any more tax dollars, so we wanted to cover those with income generation. So we've put in for a new position, a maintenance tech position. This is not a law enforcement ranger position. This is strictly for someone to help with the day-to-day maintenance operations of our department. With increased revenue comes increased public, comes increased maintenance on the facilities. So it's kind of a two-edged sword on that. So I estimate that to be just over 82,000. That includes wages, benefits, health insurance, the whole 9 yards on that position. With a salary range of between 43 and 50, the state average for that now is just shy of 49,000. But that gives us some wiggle room depending on the skill set that that person would bring to the job. So, and just to give you, I always like to throw some fun facts in here. So our comparison in the FY 22-23 statewide, we manage 3,348 acres. Statewide average is 1,791. The total number of county parks in Iowa is 1,878. Roberts Creek is the 7th largest county park at just over 1,500 acres. Cordova is the 10th largest county park at just over about 1,100 acres. Financial information, our total budget currently is $1,910,947. Statewide average budget is $1,096,000. The revenue that we take in for this year is $925,350, which ranks us 7th in the state. Our tax support is $985,597. That would rank us 19th in the state. The average tax support in the state is just over $807,000. If you look at the average number of full-time employees in the conservation departments in 22-23 fiscal year, counties that had budgets like ours between 1.5 million and 1.9 had an average number of full-time employees of 9. We have 6. Now, we do have a clerical person that will come on as soon as we get the office done. We were hoping to hire them back in October, but we now know that the office won't be done till the end of March. So we didn't have any place for that person. So that will give us 7 when that person comes on board. So still 2 below the average of counties.
When you add your maintenance tech though, would that raise this to
That would be
8?
8. That would be 8, correct, yep. And then I list some of the facilities that we maintain just to kind of show you what we have. We have 218 full-service campsites. We have 20 that are electric and water only. We have 7 modern cabins. And then we'll have 3 more coming online with the ARPA funds. So that would be 10, like having 10 rental houses that you have to maintain. We'll have the new office complex. We have 11 sewage lift stations with pumps. If anybody'd like any of those, I'd be more than happy to give those out to you. We have 8 sewage lagoons. We have 5 playgrounds. We have 8 restrooms, a pavilion that seats 400. We have a restroom at the pavilion. We have 6 open air shelters in the parks. We have 2 year-round restrooms. We have 3 electric gates with punch keys that you have to manually put the numbers in every time there's a reservation. We have an observation tower. We have almost 6 miles of hard surface trail that we maintain, 2.2 miles of soft surface. We have 2 trailheads, one with restroom and shelter house. We have 4 public boat ramps. We have 850 acres of public hunting with food plots. And we provide the baseball and softball fields for the Knoxville Little League. And then the annual report, which I'm sure you all studied in depth, shows additional minor things that the park rangers do. I try to list only about 30 or 40. That's not all inclusive, but I get tired of listing all of those. So, but anyway, the maintenance person we believe would give us more flexibility to get the maintenance issues on a day-to-day basis corrected more quickly and give a better service to the public. A lot of times now when we have, say, like a septic system go down, it's on a holiday, the nationals or a weekend. So my patrol officer is responsible for going in and trying to fix that. Or if an electric box goes down, he's in there changing out the breakers, not patrolling anymore. So that happens a lot. And when you have 11 lift stations, they always go down on a weekend.
Is there an age limit on this new position?
No, not necessarily. So, no. So I might have my eye on you.
Are you applying, Steve? Is this formal application?
Steve, can I stop you there?
Sure.
For my benefit and for benefit of the people that are listening. We had a question brought up to us here earlier in the week of the meeting, and you did answer it for me, and I kind of knew the answer, but could you elaborate on that just so everybody knows that we're not in competition with private business?
Sure. Iowa Code Section 23A addresses non-competition by government agencies. And in that code section, the cities and counties are specifically exempted if they are doing projects or facilities for for tourism or economic development. It specifically states in that code.
I knew that was the answer. I just couldn't remember the code section.
Yeah. 23A. So,
Thank
for
you.
that,
yeah,
Steve.
thanks for letting me clarify that.
So Steve, can I ask you,
Sure.
before you go to the more of the specific projects? One of the things when you get a budget of this size, the amount of infrastructure that you have, will we be able to keep up with the cost of repair? Because once we get to a certain size, you know this, we got all kinds of things going on. You highlight them here, repairs, updates, road maintenance, those types of things. So one of the things I think about is your revenue, how much the county ask is, and the deterioration or depreciation that comes with all of that infrastructure. Do you feel confident right now with the current cost structure that we're able to keep up? If we got to a point in our budget where we couldn't give you any extra dollars beyond what you asked for, that we're able to maintain, and really not just maintain, but keep a high level of service going at those physical sites?
Yeah, we try to have a maintenance schedule, like I talk about these lift stations, and sometimes the pumps will last 10 years, sometimes they'll last 20 years, but you really need a schedule of, say, every 8 to 10 years, you're phasing out one or two of those pumps and putting a new pump in. They're not a huge, I won't say they're not a huge cost, they're about $4,000 every time you put one in. But if you have to replace 8 in 1 year, that's a crunch. So we try to have, just like our vehicle rotation, we try to rotate those out every 7 to 8 years. So we don't get into a point where we have to spend $200,000-300,000 to maintain our fleet of things like that. So we try to come up with a schedule of all of our maintenance needs.
Right.
The problem we run into is having people available to keep up with that. The boots on the ground type thing. That's the problem we run into right now. But I think our income will continue to generate higher as time goes on. Now, I didn't put in the income when those 3 new cabins come online. I didn't put in any income for that, but I did increase some utility line items, knowing that that's going to be an increase. So that was already plugged into this budget request.
Okay.
So there will be income that's not recorded. But I don't know when those will come on,
When
probably
that'll-
the
when
second
that'll-
half of this year, that
Sure.
fiscal year.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I know what Steve's talking about. It's not unlike the road department. When we played catch up for a long time replacing culverts that
Yeah.
should have been maintained, but all of a sudden they all went bad at once. So then you get hit with a big cost.
Yeah, when you get behind, you get behind.
Mhm.
And then it's hard because everything we have sits outside.
Yeah.
All the buildings set outside, so there's always more maintenance to that when they're exposed to the elements 365 days a year.
Yeah, so I appreciate that because there's a theme going through some of our major departments, Steve, just like you highlighted, whether it's Tyler, Steve, Chris. It's now that we've caught up or we have been running
closer.
even with maintenance, you actually reduce your overall expenditures over time if you're on a maintenance schedule, as opposed to doing it and then letting it run for X number of years and then having your elevator, burn up and
Mhm.
have to replace. So we're much more effective with that type of approach than we are just saying, okay, we spent our money, now we can just let it run for the next 10 years
Right.
and really not do anything to it. So I appreciate that
Yeah, you have to
comment,
keep
Steve,
on
and
it.
what you guys do. I know you do it. I'm out there, shooting baskets at the county park. It's kind of my workout area. Not now, but when it gets a little warmer again, but I know you guys are out there all the time, so I really appreciate that.
It's hard to pull the trigger on, say, like a pump that's still running, but you
Mhm.
know it's on, maybe it's last leg, but you think maybe I can get one more year out of that, and then it fails a month later.
Mhm.
And that's the problem that we run into trying to pull that trigger, but you have to do that. to
Kind of like
stay-
home,
What's that?
kind of like home.
Kind of like home. Yep. And when you have 10 homes,
Mhm.
there's always something that you have to do to
Yep.
it.
Yep.
So.
All right, very good. Thank you.
The second project that we have kind of deals with the existing construction of the new office out of Cordova. That picture shows the road going in, the facility would be on your left-hand side on that picture. We need to redo that road. As you can tell, it's not in good shape. It's been basically crushed by construction vehicles. So if you turn the page, the red outline, the blue batwing looking thing is the office. The red outline is the asphalt that we need to redo. And I like to take a crack at estimating what those projects will be. So we estimate that one at a little over 44,000. It's about a little over 1,500 square yards. And I did check with Jay. He said about $29 right now for a square foot to do that. So we estimate that, and then kind of going along with that is 2B, which is the new parking lot for the classroom facility. And one of the things we want to do, I put the size at 140 by 60, which is about 24, 25 cars. We've got programs scheduled starting in the spring, and we'd like to take a look at how many vehicles actually come out when we utilize the facility. So if we can reduce the size of that parking lot, we may do that. But we need to have it at least the size for school buses to at least get in, and then they can back out. So, but I've estimated that at about 140 by 60. So you're looking at about 37,000, somewhere in there to make that happen. That way in the wintertime, it almost has to be hard surface because it's hard to push gravel in the wintertime when we have programs and schools come out. So it would be an asphalt surface on that. So
What is the parking lot size currently? I mean, how many cars?
there
did
is
you-
no parking lot there. The only thing we
Right, but I
have-
mean, this 40 by 60.
that
or
would be
140
roughly 24.
Okay, 24, okay.
So when you first go in Cordova, that first parking lot, if you
Yeah.
cut that in half, that's roughly what we're looking at. And the next page 7 shows you just the aerial. The yellow section is what I'm talking about as far as the parking lot for the classroom and stuff. The third one is we get back to the cabins. They need an extensive overhaul. We have kind of patched and fixed. But you have to remember that the 2-bedroom cabins were built in 1995, so that's 27 years ago. The 3-bedroom cabins were built in 2001, so you're looking at 21 years plus. Over that time, they've generated just shy of $3 million for Marion County. So we have a lot of repeat customers that reserve a year to 2 years out. So a lot of the people will come in and it's the same thing for the last 20 years. And like everything else, just like your house, like you said, Steve, sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and make a major investment because it does generate funds. So I give you a picture of the siding. That is the old type hardy siding, which back in 2001 was kind of state of the art. It's not anymore. They use the LP Smart siding or some other type because what it does, it'll start to flake. And it's hard to see in there, but the little areas where they nailed it up will break off. And you can see the bottom, it disintegrates over
Yeah.
time.
It's not real friendly to install
It
either.
is not. No, that's why they don't use a lot of it anymore. And the second page shows critters like to sharpen their teeth on the corners of that thing. We've replaced those a couple different times. So it just needs a complete exterior overhaul on that. And I give you some examples of what we're looking at. We're looking at concrete products. One thing we want to do is try to reduce the maintenance costs if we can. And this is just an example of a concrete log cabin siding looking material. which has a 100-year warranty on those. So that's an example. That's just a hand hewn looking one. The next page shows you the same thing, but it has chinking with it, and you can adjust the chinking gap on that when you construct it. And then the bottom picture is your typical log cabin siding. That's a 14-inch log on that. But
So those are, so the one and two, not the law.
they're all concrete.
They're all concrete.
They're all concrete.
Really?
Yep.
I
And that's
can't
what
imagine
peop-
that's pricey.
It runs about between $11 and $12 a square foot. So if you have a 3,000 square foot facility, the next page, I think I kind of, let me go back here. I think I figured about 43,000 per cabin. That's material and installation. So our staff may take the old off to reduce that cost and then just have somebody come in and put it on. The problem that we have, could our staff do it? Yeah, but it's a time thing. We don't have a big enough staff to do it. And trying to work in between reservations with a Friday check-in, we get about 4 days because they check out on a Sunday, check in on a Friday. I don't think we could do it with our staff in 4 days. That'd be a pretty good turnaround. So that's what I'm figuring that would be installed.
Remind me, Steve, did you do some of this last year? Did you?
I mentioned that we've had to redo some of the funding because of the office.
Okay, all
And
right.
so this is one that you're going to see again. We didn't get to it.
Okay.
But
Because I thought I remembered some of this, but I
Yep.
was thinking maybe it was, you did a couple and now you're doing
yeah,
more.
over the past several years, we've done a lot of improvements to like the campgrounds. We've added campgrounds.
Yep.
We've redone full service sites, upgraded all the electric. So now we're switching to the cabins where that needs to get done. Then we're going to be pretty well caught up if we can get that done with all of our facilities.
Okay.
Again, now we move to the inside of the cabins, and some of these pictures, don't really, they make them look better than they are. But again, going back to countertops that have been there 27 years and 21 years, they start to wear and tear, and we can fix them.
People surely aren't setting on the countertops and,
Oh, yeah, they never put anything hot on a countertop,
Right.
put any water on there that gets in the seams. So those are on the outside. That's a wear mark on all of the cabins have that. The seam in the middle, those are raised up because of water damage to them. They're getting old. They've
Yeah.
never been replaced. You can see on page 11, it pulls away from the wall. Now we can fix that, but the cabinets have pulled. So when they were installed, the cabinets weren't your top of the line cabinets, so they last about so long as well. So I figure that those are gonna run about 8,000 a cabin to redo that. Again, we can tear them out, but we don't have time to get them back in necessarily. Time is not our friend on the cabins because of all the reservations. It's a good thing, but it's tough to maintain them when you have people coming in and out of them, so. Again, the hardwood floors, they take a beating as well, so they need to be refinished in the 3-bedroom cabins, not the 2-bedroom cabins. I figure that's about 5,000 per cabin to do that. 3-bedroom cabins, the second floor bedroom, we'd like to enclose that. This shows
Yeah.
looking down the hall, and then you can see it doesn't go all the way up, but what happens is when people are down below, the sound travels up. So if somebody's trying to retire early to bed, that sound travels up and it's very loud up there. So we'd like to enclose that. That's basically extending the wall. And then we'd have to put more ductwork in there for down below. So estimated that cost at about 3,000 per cabin. Page 13, bathroom reconfiguration. The 3-bedroom cabins have big bathrooms. So when people come in the summer, they check in on a Friday and check out on a Friday. That's a week long. And they bring a lot of stuff. And if you have children, you bring even more stuff. And you're outside, you get dirty. You need to be able to wash your clothes. So a better use of that area in our estimation would be to enlarge the shower building, enlarge the shower, and then take the tub out and put a washer and a dryer in there. The septic and the sewer lines are close by. It wouldn't take much to do that, but we think it would be a huge benefit, especially to families that have kids. You can wash your own clothes there and not have to take them somewhere, or just put them in a pile somewhere. Because again, they bring a lot of stuff for a week's vacation. So some other things we need to look at is we've got some windows that are leaking, again, been there a long time. And we'd like to get the kind that have the integrated slim shades in them, because periodically we have to take our level or blinds off, because when people spread them, they break them or they twist them, and then they start looking pretty unsightly after several years. So that would eliminate that. All the light fixtures are basically outdated. We need to get some LEDs in there to reduce the energy cost on those. And then some other things, just put hard surface around our outdoor fire pits. And then everybody brings a bike or 10, and because the trail is right there. And right now they just go over the side. Going down is not a problem, coming back's a problem. And so we need to get a trail off those cabins down to the trail, which won't take a lot, but it would be a nice addition for those folks. And then replace the plumbing in the 2-bedroom cabins. What we find is, well, we find out when the plumbing's bad when it leaks. You know, it just disintegrates on us. So that needs to be redone. And the fourth thing we had was, we still have the old 1970 DNR brick restrooms. And that gives you an idea of the condition that they're in. They just need to go away and be redone. And so usually you can get a pre-constructed concrete restroom for about $75,000, and they bring it in. It's all put together. That's the next page. They set it with a crane. It's once you have your pad set, takes 2 days and it's ready to go. And it's actually as cheap as building a stick built. Now, right now, each one of those has 4, 2 women and 2 men. We would reduce that by half. It doesn't need to have that many stalls to it. So that gives you the outline of how that would work. They're all ADA approved restrooms, but again, you can turn them around in about 3 days and make them functional. We actually had to close the one at the observation tower this year because we couldn't get it repaired. It was just in too bad a shape. So we have to do something with that, or stay with a porta potty, basically, which not a lot of people like. So, and then for equipment, again, we've got our special projects ranger. He's scheduled for a vehicle upgrade. Again, we try to rotate those out every 7 to 8 years on that to keep up with those, because from our understanding, vehicle prices are going to go up, and we don't get the government discount. I'm sure Tyler can talk to that as well, but those go up. So supply and demand, I guess.
You don't get the government
The
discount?
way I understand it, those are being phased out, which usually was around 12 or 13,000. So,
Really?
so that's a pretty good increase when they take that away. Those are the main things in this year's, or the proposed budget. The blue sheet, I just put that in there as if we could get all this done, that'd be a lot. But I always like to add a little more in there, so you know we're busy. So I just put those in. I won't necessarily go through them, but any questions on that? I would like to take a minute and express my appreciation to a couple of departments that have really helped us this year. The IT department, Andrew, came out and worked extensively with me and some of my guys to get wireless connection from the courthouse to the new Cordova office, which would give us the Wi-Fi phone system. And I know that it took away from a lot of his other duties, and he was always there for us. And I really appreciate what he's done for us. Because we needed to have that work in order to make that building work. So I appreciate that. And also Tyler's group, they helped us take down the Roberts Creek residence that we no longer needed, and the garage. And special thanks to Tyler, his guys, Jeff Moon and Todd Walters. So that saved us money. And I can't say enough for like Chris as well, helping us with the cabin design. That saves money for Marion County folks. When departments work together and share equipment and manpower. I've been here long enough and seen enough that a lot of counties don't have that cooperation, and it ends up costing them a lot more money. And all of the county departments, Jake and all of them, we all work really well together. And I think it can't be said enough that that saves the taxpayers money. And
That's the way it should be,
yeah,
Steve.
absolutely. So the people you've got working here, fantastic folks. And I just wanted to put my 2 cents in to thank them for everything they do and all the departments. So.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Steve.
Looking forward to your center to be done and being able to view it and so you're
Well,
thinking March?
Yep, we're hoping.
Okay.
So, well, thank you for letting me come.
You bet.
So if
thank
you ever
you.
have any questions or want to see anything, just let me know. and
Are you
I'd
gonna
more
be
than
out
happy to-
there later?
What's that?
You gonna be out there later?
Well, I'm gonna be in Ankeny at 1:30, but
Oh,
Steve would like to schedule an interview with you, Steve.
Exactly.
I'll have to get with Lisa to get that one. So, but thank
Now,
you for.
now
letting me-
I might give you a recommendation.
I'm not easy to work
I'm not
with.
sure.
All
He's
right,
kind of
thank you.
bossy at times. Thank you.
Steve.
Thank you,
Thanks, Steve.
Steve. All right. Do we want to take, are we good? Continue or you want to take? a bite?
minutes and get some coffee.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to take a recess for 10 minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
aye.
We are ready to go back in. If I'll entertain a motion to reconvene and back into session.
So moved.
Second.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye.
Continuing to discuss budgets. And now is up HR. Lisa.
Thank you. First of all, I want to start out by saying that it had 2022 was a big year for me. And I just want to say that I appreciate the board support with Renee being my assistant. I want to thank you for allowing me to have time off to be with my mother as she went through her cancer treatment. That was very big for me, huge. I know a lot of Wednesdays I wasn't available in the office. Renee did an excellent job of holding down the fort for me and calling me only when necessary. So I do appreciate you allowing me the flexibility to do that. So that just wanted to put that out there for you. My budget is kind of a little hot mess. I just realized this morning, last year in my budget, I had put a 3% increase for me and a 5 for Renee, thinking that we would probably get a 3. I did not go back and readjust my salary for 2%. It's not a big dial turner. So then when I reestimated some of my salaries this year, so it's just off a little bit. So I'll need to redo my salary and Renee's, but I will keep that at 5% bucket. The other increases are small, and if you don't like that, I can sure back those off too. I increased my office supplies by 1,000. My thought was that we normally buy the office supplies for the Board of Supervisors. It'd just be easier if we just put it all in one, and we would pay for it, and then I don't need to get your signatures and all that good stuff. That's just a thought. Like I said, we can back that off. I increased my office furniture by 1,500. That is the copier for the whole building. I usually buy the paper and that. So I needed a little bit more in that line item. Along those lines, it was just kind of easier if we just put everything in one budget, I feel, but the $800 increase would be for the water that we already used too. I think Jeff was currently paying for that. And then I increased my postage by 100 and mileage by 200. So my miscellaneous I do use for postage. Sometimes if I'm mailing, if we let somebody go, I have to get their belongings back to them. So I increased that by 100. So not huge dial turners, but that's what I've changed.
What about outside counsel, Lisa?
I kept that at 10,000. Currently, and that just depends on the year. Currently, I still have $8,560
Okay.
as of the end of December.
So 10,000's been enough to cover our
Yeah.
issues so
If,
far.
if you remember, we probably started that out, I think we started out at 20.
Yep.
And I've kind of been slowly backing that down a little bit.
Yep.
It's kind of a guessing game. It kind of just depends on what kind of year we have.
No, I
so-
mean, as a floor, I mean, we started out high.
Yeah.
Because we had some major issues we were dealing with. Those have since, they're off the books. Yay. So bringing that number down is appropriate.
Yes.
Safety and protection supplies.
Yep.
What-
So that 20,000 is the safety committee. It's in my budget. I don't spend that unless, that's the safety committee spends that. It's just a line item in my budget. So that has stayed steady for several years. And we have not expended much out of that. COVID has put a big damper on our safety trainings. We're still moving forward, but we have a lot of catch up to do. So we're still working on all that as a whole. We are working with IMWCA. Renee has worked well with our rep there, getting us online training available to our employees so they don't have to miss, leave their offices to do some safety trainings that are required. So we are working on getting all that electronic so they can do it at their leisure, at their desk when they have time instead of coming here. Some of it, they still will have to come here, but we're hoping to streamline that.
Lisa, where are we at with our work comp rates?
I will know, I just looked at the website yesterday. I will know February 1st what our mod rate is for the next year. Looking at the numbers, I can't believe that we're not going to have a great rate like we did last year.
What's our total outlay for work comp right now? Do you know?
For premiums?
Yeah.
Let me grab my book just a second. So it's kind of like Jake's cash analysis. We estimate premiums, what we paid. I haven't updated it, but we're estimated premium at 86,189 for 22-23.
Jake, any idea where, or maybe Lisa, maybe you know this, that's 22, 23. I always ask this every year, just to have it in my head. Where were we 5 years ago?
Well, 5 years ago would be. So in 17-18, we paid, our premium was 133,409.
We've been as high as like 200.
That would have been
before.
higher than that.
In 11-12, we were 212,430, and our mod rate was the worst it's ever been since I have the history. Our mod rate was 1.8.
Okay, so we'll eventually hit a floor. I mean, there'll be so low you can go and you can't go any lower.
Right.
because You've hit that. So it'll be interesting to see what the rate turns out to be, what the
And-
mod rate turns
Yep.
out to be.
And remember on the mod rate, it's kind of like what Wellmark does. They go back, I think, 3 years.
Yeah.
The work comp does the same thing. So they'll go back 3 years, kind of look at your expense where we came in. And that's how they determine our mod rate. And then if we get an experience bonus too, a good experience bonus. So
So it's a great reduction though. I like that. Very good.
Okay.
Anything else? Anything else?
No.
I don't want to ask the next one. So it's okay. Yeah. If we're moving or not. So we can discuss
We'll
that
talk-
later.
We'll talk about that later.
Is Jeff, is he coming in or?
I just had.
You had to throw that in there,
I'm
huh?
sorry. Do I have any other questions?
Well, wow.
Yeah, I think so. I think she was gonna see if he sees. Okay. Ready.
Only if the building floods up to a foot, Lisa.
Hi, Mr. Anderson. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Jeff asked
won't-
in
there won't
Department
be anything in
99,
there.
right? Isn't it, is there?
Department 70, fund 80,000.
They don't have work. They
No,
don't
no.
have, you guys don't have anything in your.
Right,
Okay,
there's
yeah.
nothing. Yeah.
You just
So our
wanna give
ask
us an overview,
our-
yeah.
for the emergency management side of the house, last year, the ask of you was 155,000. I'm gonna have to increase that a little bit this year. If Lisa says her budget is a hot mess, then mine's probably got a master's degree in it. So, we've got 2 years of federal funding that are held up on waiting on a unique identification number. The contract is there, the award is there. They can't send us the money until the federal government gives us that identifying number. So, that has impacted our obviously our cash flow. Dial turners for the budget request will be, I'm gonna put in for, ask for a second vehicle. Enough times this year where Emily and I were trying to do, be in multiple places. We're at a point where I'm gonna ask for a pickup. That will allow us to have an alternate or a backup for the sign truck for pulling any of the trailers. But it will also allow us to throw a cooler of ice in if we have a fire, need to do rehab, instead of having to hook a trailer on, simply to haul a cooler with ice in it. Beyond that, wages are at 5%. For current year, our costs are up a little bit. You know, we had a hazmat call on Lincoln Street late last summer. Fairly in our terms, it was expensive. It was
In Lincoln Street in
Knoxville.
in Knoxville. Okay.
Yeah, right there in front of Subway.
The Semi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was for us, that was a big thing. Not in your world, but that was a $10,000 response, closer to 12. So money in, money out, but it inflates my budget. So 911 side of the house, let me stop there. Any
Okay.
questions for me on emergency management?
Again, remind me where his comes out of for us,
So his actual budget is a whole separate process through his board. The one place for EMA that is in your budget would be Department 99.
okay, yep.
And it's a one line item deal for an expense. So
Yep.
it's 155 this year. Is there
Do you have
need a
total
different
yet?
number?
I'm gonna have a different number to you by Monday. I'm waiting on some projected costs to come in. So I'll have that to you Monday.
It's
Apologies for my delay.
it's got its own specific line item, Keisha, so it's in Department 99, Fund 2. Yeah, it says emergency management on it.
Yeah, I saw it earlier. That's why
That's
it's
probably
fine.
page.
It's
10 for you.
155. That's what you say. So. Okay,
Any ideas, Jeff?
yeah.
Rough
Ballpark?
guess?
Closer to 200. I think for quite a few years, our ask was around 185, 180. And I dropped it down the last couple of years. Due to a lot of factors, I'm gonna have to bump it back up. This year I've got to replace some of our hazmat suits are at end of life. One of the downfalls in starting a hazmat team in 2013 is we bought all the equipment relatively at the same time. So we're trying to graduate as those need to be phased out, trying to graduate that out so we don't have the big hit at those same timeframes every time, but not again, for me, it makes my budget, it's a noticeable change for you guys. I'm not talking hundreds of thousands.
I'm gonna ask this because Kim talked about vehicles. Is there any way one of those vehicles would work for it? I know long-term, probably not, but I mean, is that something that would be?
Temporarily, we could make it work, and then, because the reality is I needed a second vehicle yesterday with everything we had going on.
Right.
We could potentially have a discussion. I don't have the money in the budget to buy a vehicle right now.
But I
Yep.
mean, if it was,
I don't see it as
After
a
the
viable
July.
long-term solution, because they wouldn't tow a trailer. Little hesitant to throw coolers that are gonna be wet and sweaty in the back of a minivan, that kind of thing. But we can have a conversation about short-term.
just a thought, Yep.
And just, Keisha, I know you and I talked about it, Mark and I have talked about it, Steve, for your benefit. Really what I'm proposing, the current Tahoe is 6 years old, got 70,000 miles on it. Essentially what I'm asking is to buy another vehicle now and prolong the life of the Tahoe, and we won't replace it. I'm scheduled for an exit strategy here in about 3.5, 4 years. And at that point, you can decide if you still need 2 vehicles or if you want to go back to 1. But where we're at right now, the need is there for a second vehicle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
911 side, I have no idea what the 911 board members are gonna do. The fund balance is Last I looked, about 1.3 million. So I'm not gonna make any predictions about what they're gonna do. We are in year 3 of the shared services, which is the state contracted a network for the 911 equipment. Whereas our local board used to purchase and maintain our own 911 call taking equipment to the tune of anywhere between 100,000 to 250,000. So we quit buying that. We've saved some money by going shared services, but we're in year 3, year 4 and 5. We have to renew, not a tremendous increase in expenses. So that's in front of the board. I mean, I think total between the two PSAPs were less than 50,000, so not a huge expense there. Randy, our sign technician, part-time, has actually been under budget. Lisa ran some reports for me that were very interesting from my point of view. Randy's actually, and I apologize for not having the graph here today, but the amount of production has gone basically through the roof. Mark talked about rate of change earlier in a bar graph. There's a very significant rate of change in the production. Emily came on board 2 years ago. Last year, we worked towards an internal process to kind of streamline and make the 911 side more efficient. The numbers don't lie. We were very effective in that. We reduced our mileage, so therefore, we were buying less $3.50, $4 gallon gas in the sign truck. But the point I'm trying to make is Randy's actually been under the number of hours that I've budgeted for him for the last 4 or 5 years. Randy's getting to a point where he's asking for a little bit of help with certain projects. So I'm gonna seek an additional part-time helper for him that can cover the workload when Randy goes on vacation, for example, next week. The process of going out and putting in the signs requires him to lift an 80-pound hydraulic driver off the side of the truck. When he's doing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those a day, it's not a big deal for him because it's spread out through the day. But we've got re-signing projects on Highway 5 and 163 that will come up in the spring, where he's going to be lifting the driver off the truck about every half an hour. And I don't feel that it's safe. I wouldn't want to do it in that kind of a frequency. So I want to seek a part-time helper to help him increase our safety, increase our production, and not not beat Randy into the ground. So I'm not expecting to increase the budget. As I said, we were under the number of hours that I had budgeted, so shouldn't be anything noticeable there, other than we're going to continue to get that work done safely.
Do you think it would be, I know you said part-time, obviously, but you don't think it would be temporary? You think this was long-term? I just didn't know
Here-
when you look at the graphs, and then I know that you guys are trying to,
Yep.
be
Here's the-
proactive and getting some.
Here's the facts.
Signing
When I
done.
hired Randy, I hired him part-time and gave him the flexibility to continue to go on vacation with Denise when he wanted to. The workload, the number of signs that get knocked down, Missy will occasionally call with urgent request. It just doesn't work to shut the sign program off for 2 weeks, when he goes on vacation. So between that and we both talked to him. He's starting to express some concerns about lifting that driver off the truck. As you can imagine, trying to do it right now with the slippery ground, it's just not safe. If that 80-pound driver, if he was to slip, that 80-pound driver lands on his chest, that's not where any of us want to be. So
About where we're at, Jeff, in replacing all these, putting up the new E911 sign, where are we at?
So what we've been doing, Steve, is the current project has been to replace we call them the vertically oriented, where the numbers are stacked on vertically. We know by when those were put in that they're past end of life. So what we've been doing for the last 1.5 years is trying to get rid of all of them. That needed to be done first. we're at a point now where I think we don't know, because frankly, we don't know how many signs we had. We feel like we're probably 80% done with those. And now what we're doing is trying to get the sign program on a regular rotation. So what we're doing right now, the way the sign program works is, you know what it's like outside. So Emily and I have programmed work for next summer. I've cut most of the vinyl. She's created the work orders. And our internal process is Randy is now spending time in the shop during the winter, building signs that will be installed come spring and summer. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put each of our townships on a rotation. For example, in the spring, Randy will be going northwest up towards Runnels, Prairie City, Monroe, working that township, basically north of the lake and west of Highway 14. Then it'll just be each year we'll do an additional township.
For the new sign?
Yep. So what we'll do in that year when we're in those townships is we will replace any of the old address markers, 911 address markers at each residence. And we will replace the street name signs if they've not already been replaced within the last couple of years. So that'll reset our clock. 3M warranties the sign material that we use for 15 years. So that will reset our clock for a 15 to 20 year cycle. And we'll start all over again. I want to also thank, there's something else new that we did this year. Emily and the IT staff worked very hard on getting us a GIS platform where we could collect the data. I told you before, we've got somewhere between 17 and 20,000 signs that we're responsible for. But I have no idea, to be exact.
Yeah.
I don't know when they were put in. I don't even know where they're all at. Somewhere, I don't know the date, but April, May, we had some bugs we worked through. April, May, IT staff built a field collector app for us. We bought a couple $1,000s in GPS equipment to collect the data. And we began, each time Randy put in a sign or maintained a sign, we started collecting data on it. And it's pretty impressive to look at the map now because each of the signs that he's installed shows up as a red dot on the map. You're familiar with it from your previous work. So we're starting to get an electronic record of our responsibilities and assets out there. So looking forward to that as we go forward. Very easy to see right now, basically what work we got done between April and yesterday, because it appears as a red or green dot on the map. So very appreciative of this young lady's work. There was points in time where I just didn't have the patience for, when you're unveiling a new piece of technology and it has so many pieces to it. But she stuck with it and stayed in the game and fought through it, and they worked together and got it done. So I'm very happy with that.
Good.
And it takes a picture of the sign and stores it in the record. So we know exactly what is there. So very happy with the sign program. Very easy to see where Randy came on board. Even easier to see where Emily came on board and really where we started hitting our stride with the program. Last winter was rough on Randy because that was the first winter that we'd really done anything. And if you were ever in the sign shop last winter, he's got a table back there. And at one point in time, we had it stacked clear full to the point where they were sliding off vinyl that I had cut for him to work on all winter. We overwhelmed him a little bit, but it was just the first year of the way it should run. He's not having trouble this year. In fact, I'm behind on getting him blank aluminum, and I'm gonna have to find some other things for him to do. He's going on vacation next week, so it'll end up being fine, but he's doing very well this winter. So. And she's doing an incredible job of keeping track of the data. We're trying to track a lot more of the data than we ever have. So again, so that we know what we have and what we've done.
Right.
And I think each year we go forward now, it'll get even better.
So really when we look at county ask, you're looking at that roughly possibly 200,000 area.
Yep.
Estimates. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jeff. Thank you.
All right.
Last man standing.
Yeah, Jake. We could go over the auditors, which is, I think, what is it, 3 or 4? What number are
It's
you?
2.
Jake? 2.
So, high level, we have all of our, positions in the budget, occupied and a full staff, so we appreciate that. Bucket for this budget purpose, for any changes, bucket is 5%. The comp board is at half. So there's that in this way. We have to move around for our election cycle. We have to move around general versus, city school, that type of thing. It's really scary that we're programming for the general election. Really.
Already, right?
Something. So anyway, that's, what moves around. Just like everything else, elections aren't getting cheaper, and what we are seeing is, more of them and more specials. So, it seems like every March and every September, we do have a special now where we didn't before. So,
Remind us in regarding a special. So if a city calls a special,
Mhm.
does that city then pays?
Yes.
For that special?
so
Does it cover?
we front the cost and we can bill for certain things. We cannot bill for our time. We currently have a Prairie City Monroe School special, gonna be March 7th. And, so we have to be open for that. There's 400 voters here in the county. We will be able to bill them for the programming, for the ballots, for some, items like that, but like our time, we don't. We're gonna be required to be open from 8 to 5 on the holiday, whatever holiday that is, President's Day, the 16th, I think it is, or something like that. We have to be open that day. We can't bill them for that time.
Hmm.
And any of our time, but
Right.
yes, so I do program a little bit of that. I didn't used to program any revenue in for specials, but, it just seems like we always have one and it was consistent. So there's some revenue programmed in it.
Can I ask another question?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, has there ever been, the Auditors Association, have they ever legislation wise? I mean, when you have a primary and a general, but then you have all these specials,
Mhm.
has there been anything you advocate up at the Capitol, difference in
Uh,
pricing?
In pricing,
Yeah, so like
Oh.
to be able to pay, other than the,
what we can charge for, if we
Yeah.
can charge for our own time. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know. It probably wouldn't go very far. How it goes. The other, so, in here, what we're doing is just, we have our positions filled. We have to catch up on insurance on that. And then the other big change would be, I am on the 3rd year of, purchasing our electronic poll book. So when you go in and scan your license and do, this isn't iVoters, but this is electronic poll book. It was a good move. We were basically forced to do it, but it's been a really good move to have electronic poll books. Because I'm incurring more specials, I didn't program it in for the first 2 years and have been able to just take care of that $25,000 payment, but we are showing it in the 23-24 budget as that.
is that
Um,
under general supplemental or where is it?
It's everything election wise is under general supplemental.
Okay.
So some of the switch around too in there is like for salary, Danny is now taking over major responsibilities of elections. So we shifted some of her salary from the general fund to the general supplemental fund because that's where she spends a lot of her time now. So those numbers moving around in there, so they show some percentages bigger or lower, but it's just shifting around between the two funds. Okay. Otherwise, I mean, nothing, no other major ask. Just keep doing what we do. On a side note to that for Department 99, if you want to, as long as we're talking about elections and we've been talking about, maintenance programs, keeping things current, our election equipment, like coming to you with another ask, but our election equipment is, from, 6 years old, which is like an end of life. They're stopping to pull support. There's new generation out there. I have a quote from our, vendor that we use, get along with well, Adkins out of Missouri. It's a Unison product. It's their latest version of, voting equipment. I would like to purchase. I would like to cycle out our, voting equipment that we use at the polls. It's $150,000 outlay that could be done in a one-time payment or over a 3-year period. So however you guys would like to do that, but that needs to happen, because memory cartridges, around some of the counties where it's end of life for technology, and the expectation is that we be on the front end of that for elections.
So Jake, any interest rate on that? If we space
We,
it
there
out?
is no interest.
No interest?
No,
Nah, space it out over
Yeah.
3.
Yep.
That's easy.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you wanted to just do that up front or not. So,
If it was finance charge, sure.
nope. They're really good to work with us on that.
Okay, good.
That's in Department 99, not Department 2.
Yep.
Department 2 is effectively just salaries and
And
our
what else do we
supplies.
have in 99, Jake? We've got our
Wanna switch over
building.
to 99?
Yeah, we might as well.
I have a few questions in 99 that I highlighted too.
Sure. So
So the no wait appointment, it seems like,
it's a
that-
big jump on that. and-
Yeah.
And that's some of that IT that,
assuming it's expense, like the price of it is just increased.
yeah, they changed their structure, and I'm not an expert on that, but, I'm drawing a blank on a word. Mark,
Utilize?
nope. When a central service. I had essential service and a central service. So we have talked about that over years. Some of this stuff that benefits all departments, we all generate, comes out of Department 99 now as a central service to all. So like
Right.
multiple departments are using the no wait. That's the word I was we've talked about that over
Yep,
in the
yep,
past.
yep.
So that no wait thing, from what I understand is it had a fee structure and we were in on the front end of that and stuff. They've gone to like an annual subscription.
I wonder, I
That's my
figured that
understanding.
was-
So it's,
'cause-
I don't remember what he programmed in that, but it's up to like $10,000.
Yeah,
or
it's
something like that.
$10,000, yeah.
So multiple departments use it. That's why that number's there. And I don't have a whole lot of detail on that. but-
Right.
If you want on Department 99, the very first 2 lines, that will knock another one off your checklist is HERDA.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
So HERDA, you've annually given 36,000. That's budgeted. They sent a letter, a request, I believe, for, participation of local match into a vehicle. That was programmed in at 10,650. It's programmed in there now. If you guys want to leave it, you can. That doesn't mean you have to do it. Also had last year the same ask at 13,926, and you guys didn't purchase a vehicle. So I don't know if you want to leave that in there or not, but that was their ask. And
Yeah.
Steve, you said you
Right.
wanted.
No, I would ask that we honor that, if you guys are okay with that.
No, it's fine. If
mean,
you think
yeah,
that's the way to go,
Yeah,
Steve, I'm
because
fine with that.
Yeah, they're looking at getting more cost efficient vehicles and matching the size of vehicles to the need here in Marion County,
Hmm.
so I'm okay with that.
Okay,
It's in here. It's in your projected, that would affect your fund balances. They come to you guys with the specific, with the actual purchase, and you guys can.
no, I think that's fine.
Because this is just for budgeting. So.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I know,
Okay.
and they have offered to come down and explain, but I
They're
don't-
not doing electric.
no,
Okay,
no,
all right,
electric.
all right.
Not yet.
I mean, well, because
I
you gotta
mean,
worry about the expense on the other end. the
They
batteries,
may
right?
be forced
Hey,
into
that's
that.
not, that's a,
They
you
may
say
be
that
for-
tongue in cheek, but
They may be forced into that on the
No,
federal.
but I think we have to.
if that day
monitor-
comes, that's a different discussion.
Yeah, that's a different
Yeah.
discussion.
Keep us apprised on if they're
Yeah.
going electric, because that's,
We'll go back to horses,
yeah, it's,
stagecoach.
Um,
Steve can utilize that then out of the park. We can have rides. We can offer rides now.
the impact line is still in there, but there's been no cash outlay for impact. There's just a line item for
I
that.
don't think that we need to have that if we can, I mean, on impact, I mean, if they're not requesting, I don't see that we need to continue to have
How
it.
much is in there?
$5,000.
Yeah, take it out. It's
Yep.
fine. I don't care.
The next line, I mean, we don't have to go this line by line, but this is one of your bigger items, because like Jeff was just in here, is the congregate meals support. So I put that up to the ask that Kim had asked for.
Yeah.
And so it's 98.2.
Yep.
That's what her.
Yep.
It's up just a little bit.
Yeah, just a hair, but still way down from what we used to allot for this program.
Mhm.
That
Property up the next one.
the environmental cleanup thing, was in there. You guys raised that back up again last year, and most of this stuff just stays unless you guys want to specifically change it. Again, it's, if you don't use it, you don't use it.
How much should we put in there, Jake?
200.
What did we utilize last year?
In the current year, we haven't utilized,
We didn't use any in 21,
Let's take
22.
take it down to 100.
It's just, I think what we did it last year just because we had talked about several projects
Yeah.
and then it's been here and there, but we didn't utilize.
But with,
so.
but with the, I know there's a lot out there, but until we get something we can act on, we can always amend this and pay it later. We don't have to, but let's keep the money in the general fund then and.
Okay. I believe the one cleanup you guys did was like 35,000. Yeah, so then it'll move on to like the employee assistant program and the inmate access for the jail. That's safe protection. It is more pricey than it used to be, budgeted 15. But feels like it's a pretty good backstop for a major medical.
Yeah, tell her when we have them, we'll deal with them.
You can always amend for that.
That's right.
Jake, I got a question for you.
Yep.
So we've already done the no wait appointment program. Down on that, into that page, it's the accounting, auditing and clerical. What
Yep.
is that?
Our the services for our annual audit. So it's the annual audit, the accrual report and the times they come.
Thank you for that. clarity.
Anything else material, Jake?
The only
What
other
about our
thing-
building fund and our
so
major projects?
the transfer to the capital projects,
Capital improvements, yeah.
it was programmed at 50 last year, so that's what it is now. So that would be the transfer from Fund 1 to Fund 01007,
What do we have in there right now?
cash.
Trying to figure out where you're at.
Uh,
I know what you're talking about. I just don't know where it's at, but.
Yeah, you guys go through a lot more work. I just let him tell me the numbers. Hey, Lindsay, we need this spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Buildings right there. Okay, yep, I see where you're at, but it doesn't say a total yet.
Cash on hand today, Michaela, or the treasurer's office, and that fund is 437,409.
Okay.
So that like, when you sold the, Dickerson land,
Yep. So,
that went in there.
so there's, so we've had 50,000 that we put in that.
Yeah, it's only been, you put
Well,
more than that in 1 year.
Yeah, we did. We seeded it with some money too, with the sale of the county home.
But
So-
yeah, that was in the beginning.
So one thing I want to keep on the docket is we need to sell that Sixth Street Annex. And we've got an appraisal that we did a year ago. So
We have a lease agreement until September of 23 this year.
Yeah.
So, I was kind of hoping that, letting the lease agreement, they should be talking, Steve, I think you handled it last, and I think last time you talked to them, it was like April, May, June, it starts the conversation, and so.
but I think concurrently with that, since we know it's up in September, we
Yeah.
can start the appraisal process and what it's going to take. Remember, we lack parking there. So it's not prime commercial property. So we come up with our options on how we want to dispose of that.
Yeah, I think we've all expressed.
But if we get the money
Yeah.
and we put it in there.
Because I think we have to think about, I know
So-
that Chris has talked to us in the future, possibly tuck pointing, some different things that, we could be looking at and coming on the courthouse and wanting to try to take care of it, so.
So,
Yeah.
so I would be fine with again, another 50 going in there. I think that's fine. And then if we sell that annex, that goes in there.
And again, that doesn't get transferred and it would come back, it comes back to you guys. So it'll be programmed in the budget that way, but the actual transfer has to be approved again. by you
It
guys.
actually
So
has to,
If you
yep.
do or don't want to, we're talking about the transfer from the general fund to the capital projects.
Right.
That has to come back.
Right now, it's just accounting. It's an accounting number.
Each of that's on like line 7 or page 7.
Yep, I
probably.
got that. Yep, yep, I saw that. Appreciate that.
The only, I mean. Let me see here.
Right,
just a
that was
second.
all I-
Yeah, so like I budgeted the full amount of what was in there. Because.
Yeah.
Right, so, from an ARPA standpoint, and sorry,
No, you're fine. Go ahead. and
so
answer.
from the ARPA, if you're rolling through, programmed. What I think hasn't been spent, the 3,675,000. So we just put that in as a one line item. Because you have to have it budgeted to spend. So that's shows as a big negative when we were looking in the very beginning on that fund balances and the disparate, that's a big negative because we have the cash. We don't have any revenue this year. It looks like a negative to this year's budget, but because we have to budget it to spend it. So
Right. But our intent, so we have say that number again,
I
3
think
million
it's,
what?
I think it's gonna be 3,675,000.
And what are the only remaining large project we have is Junction 92.
And all the cabin, the
Cabins, so we-
The
cabin.
cabins.
Those
So
out.
we haven't moved that money to him yet for those
No,
cabins.
when that stuff happens, it comes directly out of this fund. So
Okay.
they give us the invoice.
And that
So-
was 1.8, is that correct, Steve? It was for,
Yeah, I guess what I want to know is what cash hasn't been spoken for out of that 3 million?
That's, yes. And
Yeah.
resolution wise, yeah, what we haven't. We spring these things on you, Jake, and we appreciate
I
your.
had a worksheet, but I don't have with me, I don't have the actual, like, we figured out what, the other day we asked for the law enforcement center and stuff. The different projects that you guys approved out there. It was really close to target. Okay, so there's 1.8. I'm rounding, working off that worksheets that you guys have seen the whole time. 1.8 for conservation. Emergency radios were purchased. Facilities between the LEC, HVAC and security, and the courthouse, HVAC and security, and public health, HVAC roof, parking lots. All that has about been completed, so that was like 1.8, and that's done. So we're at 1.8. There was on your project list, has not had a approved resolution yet, 100,000 for disaster recovery for IT. That has not,
Okay.
that it was on the list, but has not had a resolution. So. And road department has 200,000 for their Junction 92 fuel storage that was approved and has not been spent. So you were at 1.8, you're at 2.1. LEC fuel storage is, I think it's operational. Junction 92 is 1.5. That gets us to 3.6.
Are there any of those projects, even the ones we don't have resolutions for, that anybody has disagreement with?
I'm not aware of any disagreements. Sorry.
So can we get resolutions for those and get that allotted?
Sure.
So we don't look like we've got 1.8 million just sitting out there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were wanting to know how much we hadn't spent.
Yeah.
So the only money that hasn't been allotted would be that hasn't been, has a resolution that designates it is 100 for the disaster recovery. And then there's like 190 of undesignated. So you have,
So
So-
290,000?
yeah, that's it that hasn't been designated.
Oh, okay. All right. So everything else has been designated.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, I was getting to the 3.6. That's
Yep.
why your budget has 3.6 because it is,
Yeah,
like
but
Steve's
it's
gonna start
275,
incurring those
but-
costs.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
So 290 has not been,
And
Yes.
we're working off of we're working off of,
okay. Nope, that's helpful.
That makes
Thank
sense.
you. Perfect.
The only other question I had for you, Jake, in Department 99 is page 12. The county government assistance, the typing, print, binding service, is that?
Mhm.
What is that?
okay, so that's a separate fund. It's been around, it's called just a second.
That's not to deal with the recorder though, is it?
No.
Okay.
So it is a fund that has been around forever. We put like, if we sell a plat book, we put in it. It used to get used for environmental cleanup on like old gas stations. There's really no revenue into it other than us putting our plat books in there. It's been carrying a balance and we never programmed for it. So I put in the amount of what was in that fund. I don't remember what it was. In case you want
50,000.
How much
50.
is in there?
50. And it's kind of got some specific use. So I programmed it in so you could spend it. I have a thought that maybe you could use it for some of that imaging of your records.
I like the thought.
Yeah.
I'm not that familiar with the restrictions of the fund, but we definitely can get into it more.
Do we have to hold that in there?
I don't think, that's why,
Yeah, if you
I
can
don't
work that
think
out, I
so.
think that's what caught my eye. I was like, oh, well, maybe that's what
It
the
was
recorder was
something that-
talking about.
it's just kind of been here.
Okay.
Like secondary road department used to use it quite a bit when they were managing some of those
Sure.
gas station
Sure.
spills, or not spills, excuse me, cleanups,
we can
but
re-
we don't have any more of those either.
Redeploy those dollars for something else.
At least
that'd
it's
be-
budgeted.
Yep.
Let's see, so in this, is programmed the 1.5 from the local option sales tax for the Junction 92.
Mhm.
And again, it's there to
Programmed,
spend
yep.
if you have it. If you don't want to, you don't want to.
And the debt service.
Insurances.
So I want to take a step back here
Mhm.
for a second. So we have Tyler, are you still on or did he leave
I
or?
don't know where he was gonna stay and left, so I'm not
Okay.
sure.
All right. So we've got, because our next major project is Junction 92 from an expenditure standpoint.
Mhm.
So we have 3 million between local option and ARPA
And he
out of an
has-
8 well, yeah, I would say we need Tyler. What was it? 8 million? Steve, do you remember $8 million estimate for the
Yeah, somewhere around there.
total build?
Yeah.
Renee, was there something that popped up?
Sorry, Tyler's on an appointment. He is available by text.
Okay, just ask him. So we've got 3 million. And then we said 59% cash. So whatever we end up doing, whatever that 59% works out to, the rest is made up through general fund dollars.
Yeah, and he was struggling to come up with the 8 million and hoping that maybe if any costs were to come down, but
So we were to program in from the first day, there isn't that general fund commitment in here that I will be putting in. But I don't know if you wanted that at 500 this year or $1 million this year.
Well, that's what I wanted to kind of get Tyler's feel for how we space out the general fund
I know
component
he's
of
been,
this.
starting to get back into looking at this. Some of
Okay.
the other projects have pulled
So
him
he's not-
away.
if
so
he's
I
not
don't
ready,
think
that's
he's quite
fine.
ready there yet,
Then
Mark.
let's, because we've got revenue bonds. And we gotta
Potential
think,
revenue
and we gotta
bond.
think about the mechanics of the revenue bond for the remainder.
Yeah,
So just maybe make a note, Renee, that I
he's
need to catch
definitely
up
going to
with
be
Tyler.
coming back to you guys on Junction 92 in the very near future.
Okay,
yeah, I
All
know
right.
he was continuing.
It's just,
to
would you
when I
like
was
to
speaking with
program
him.
in $1 million in this FY 24 budget or 500 because it's going to take you
yeah,
longer?
let's talk to Tyler first. I'd rather spread it out if we can. But I want to talk to him and see what he thinks the mechanics of this will be. What?
I've
And
sent him a
that's fine.
text. I'm
And I
just not
think-
getting an
Don't worry about
answer.
Don't worry about it.
Okay,
We'll-
I'll just
talk
tell him to get with the board.
Okay.
He's not forgotten about the project.
I'm sure he hasn't.
All right. Otherwise, that's, I
Um,
didn't know if you had anything else, Jake?
I'm not,
Department 99 that I didn't have.
yeah, our tort liability insurance, I'm not sure what to do with. I put an increase in it, but I'm not sure it's enough. Otherwise, I don't touch much.
I have a couple cleanup things and then we can talk levies. Couple cleanup things would be, just making sure we have clarity for economic development, IT department. As a board, we want to leave that in their budget and then before they do anything with that, they would have to come to us. Or what the board is thinking.
So you're talking about staffing.
Yep, staff, yeah.
Can I ask one question? Do you want to talk about the PIO position at all? That was asked as a board.
I mean, I think it's in our board of supervisor line.
The PIO position.
Emily?
Yeah, if we were gonna increase, you mean?
No, just in general, do you need an update from the PIO? Do you need to talk or are you just gonna
Well,
leave
no.
everything the same?
We're fine.
We're fine. Okay, just thank you.
So, yeah, currently, I believe IT had in there hiring another person and then the wage difference with Andrew trying to make that spread. And then economic development, as a recap, was the salary item increase. And then also looking at her adding another position the following year. And I had made the comment of just leaving it in there, and obviously when we do performance evaluation, so finalizing that on economic development. I don't know that we discussed any more on IT, so I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on it.
Didn't, and Missy had a position in hers too, right?
Yes, yep.
So we've got Missy, IT, and economic development that have all budgeted for either part-time or full-time ads. And I guess I'm fine with leaving those positions budgeted. And when, I guess my view would be when they need to hire, that becomes a discussion at the board level before we expend those funds. So I'm fine with the budgeting part of it. I don't have a problem with that. But there's no posting. There's no expense. There's no money spent until we have a discussion and say, hey, I think I need to pull the trigger now. So
I
we
don't
can
disagree
delve
with
into
that.
No, that's where I'm at too. I'm comfortable with that, but we need to have at the time, when the time comes, we need to have that discussion.
Yes.
But I'm fine with it keep it in the budget.
Does that need a motion or is that just?
No,
No,
it's
it's
already,
clear.
it's
It's
already,
clear.
it's already
Because-
budgeted.
Because process, if anybody comes back with edits or changes, that will be included. It'll stay until you guys approve the
Yeah,
actual budget.
I
It's in
mean,
the
everybody I
budget.
think has heard it. It's on the tape. There's no disagreement. It's in the budget. Don't spend it until, and Lisa, you're the conduit for it. If anybody posts something and you got to say those positions have to be brought to the board.
And then also, for clarity, Jake, for myself, those, with the compensation board, those that didn't put 50%, they will send those into you for changes.
So departments that need to make salary adjustment changes due to that, need to get those to me as soon as they can.
Okay, great. And then ultimately, I think we as a board, I personally would like to see when we look at the fund balances, it's just kind of nice to be able to have that recap of what we're looking
Yeah,
at.
once all edits are in, we'll update those fund balances, projections and send them to you.
Good.
I'm not gonna do any, well, talk about that if you guys go to levies. But I don't feel like we can change the taxable valuations until they decide if they're gonna pass the bill or not.
Yeah.
Right.
And we all need to understand that will just, that will have to be.
It'll be what it is, whatever that number turns out to be.
Really quick, we forgot healthcare.
Yep.
We can discuss that and then go maybe to go to levies.
Yeah, so I guess Don't know if you all have any questions. I can act as a proxy for Sarah unless she's on. I mean,
Yep,
since
yep.
most of
No,
this
we
is,
were able to go back. I mean, I was able to go back,
most of this is what I
and-
asked her to do, so I guess
and,
I'm the one who can answer the questions.
review, which was important for me to be able to just step back and look at it, have to process things sometimes. Yeah, I understand where you're going with this, Mark, and I do, I see that. So I don't have an issue with this.
No, I'm fine with what we discussed yesterday, or the other day.
I know
So,
that-
so are you fine with the recommendation as presented?
Yes,
Okay, I'll,
Make a motion? Yep. Steve, do you want to make a motion? for
I
that?
make that motion.
I'll second it.
And it's
So
just
approving the health and benefit renewal as presented.
and benefit. Okay, and that was Steve. Did you make the motion?
Mark seconded. I made the motion.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye. As a footnote to that, reminder, I would like the board with our next renewal, if our trend continues, we see increased uptake on the HSA to consider next year upping that HSA allotment. So we'll see what happens with the renewal, but if we get greater participation in the HSA program, the rates continue to move in that direction where the cost for the county, if you just look at the employer cost on that HSA plan for the county, it's materially excuse me, I got excited. Materially different than those other plans that maybe we start thinking about.
I'm assuming that contribution increase will, depending on what happens in this next cycle.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
again, it's too early to say we've got a trend.
Right.
But now if we get another year of results like this and we get more people on the plan and we see that trend is holding, now we've got a little more confidence
Right.
that that's going to really
I
bring
think, where are
down.
we at, 1,500 now?
And I just would like to add that Renee and I have already received inquiries on how the high deductible and the HSA work. So we've already got people, just a few employees that have listened. Word is spread already. And so we've already are getting inquiries about how that works. And so we will be working with those people.
I mean, I didn't say this during the renewal, Lisa, and Sarah didn't either, but if I take the family contribution rate for the HSA plan, which
570,
is it 570 a year?
the PPO,
No, high deductible. What's the individual cost, the employer cost, but let's take the family high deductible. What do they pay annually for their insurance?
18406.
And,
Times 12.
Yeah.
annually. So take that times 12.
Yeah, I did the rough math and
You know where I'm going.
I know where you're going.
I wish this would have been available 25, 30 years ago.
I'm sorry, I wasn't here, Steve.
I know.
The annual cost for family high deductible health plan beginning July will be 2,208.72.
But on a net basis, it's about $500 because we're giving you 1,500.
Right.
Yeah. So it's an amazing deal for folks. I'm glad
And
they're,
I will
I'm glad
say,
they're inquiring.
what we contribute to a county, my husband just recently took a different job and he had some other opportunities and looking at their health care. Ours is very exceptional. It's very good. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to what's in our private sector?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
all right.
So, can I do administratively with Lisa? Still do that resolution? Would you still
Yes.
do that resolution?
Yep.
When you
I will do the resolution for health, dental, and vision like I normally do. And then as soon as, if the numbers change for life insurance and HSA, will bring that back to the full board too.
Right.
At a later date.
Thank you.
Did we vote on this yet?
Did we, I don't know, did we? Yeah, I guess we did make,
Hmm.
yeah, we did vote on it.
Yeah.
All right. Levies? No, you're fine.
So.
Do we have the, we don't have the chart of levies?
Well,
Well, we know we're not doing anything, well, I guess.
We just want to,
General fund,
Yep.
anybody want to change it from 350?
no.
I just want somebody to tell Jake, yeah, I'd like to go down. So,
Oh, that makes it though, the general supplemental.
well, you'd have to
that's-
bring
yeah.
all those liabilities over. What
Um,
about Fund 2? I would like
okay.
to reduce the levy in Fund 2.
Okay.
So can we show the Fund 2
she's getting it.
sheet?
Yep, that's what she's.
This is the cash flow one, is that? Or do you want the one that shows the actual
I
levy
just
amount?
wanted, I like that sheet up there that shows it.
You the cash flow sheets, yeah. And Jake and I had kind of spoke about this.
Just that cash flow sheet. So what? No. There you go.
Yeah.
Now scroll.
This is-
Okay, so based on what, we still have some unknowns. We still have some unknowns because of the legislation. That's good. That's fine. But I think we have enough room in this fund from a balance standpoint that we can take this down 15 to 20 cents, similar to what we did last year. It's obviously going to bring the fund balance down, but we're seeing some benefits to our health insurance program where costs can be, we were estimated to come in at 10, we came in at 7. If we continue to get uptake on the high deductible plan, those costs should trend down. We have about $500,000 in the major projects fund. So we have a balance there to work with for minor contingencies as far as building goes. So we're setting aside money there, which is good. Any other contingency plans, we've got a healthy fund balance. So we're not cash strapped in an emergency situation where if even we had to build an elevator, we have cash available to do that.
Exactly why, that's what the fund balance is for. It's not for wages or.
Yeah, Fund 2
Right.
is for specific though, Fund 2 is.
And you have to, when the taxpayer sees it, they just see it as a $9.86 levy. Okay, that's the total aggregate levy. Fund 2 for us is strictly limited to certain items, but it is the only fund we have flexibility.
Right.
Period. So I'm proposing between that 15 to 20% for 20 cents reduction in the fund, which would bring our levy down. But from a cash standpoint, we seem to be doing really well. Now, there may come a point where we reach equilibrium and we can't go any farther, but that's a good place to be. We should actually be spending the dollars out of this fund, not holding a lot of cash in reserve. The general fund is where we hold our cash, not in Fund 2. So there you go. There's my pitch.
I have a question and I maybe need some clarity from Jake on this. So right now, if you were to, I think you have to publish here soon, what our levies are. Can we change this later if the legislation, if there's any change there, or is now the time that we give you the directive of saying reduce?
So we need to do the first step, is the max levy, publication and public hearing and resolution. So what that is actually, it's actually a tax dollar amount. So I could publish that at this request right here. That's your pledge that you're not gonna increase. And then I could do that, with whatever's here, like now as is, because it's ready to go. And then that's just saying you won't exceed that. Then I can program in a reduction if you guys want to and project and give you your new fund balances along with the edit. And that would be, and then you can see where it is and you want to make an adjustment yet you still could. You just couldn't ask for more
Right.
ask for more tax dollars than what's in this version one.
So when could you, if we were to go that direction, when would you present? It would be like the next board meeting, or is there a certain time frame? Is that in March, or when is that?
Well, I need to get all the edits from any departments and then I'd like to pledge that I would be able to get that by the next board meeting, but I'm not sure because I've my auditor, I mean, so,
You got
can
several
sure
things
try.
on. Yep, yep.
but well, we could try to.
Yeah.
If I,
I mean, I see
If
where
I-
you're going and I don't disagree that we need to reduce it. I would just kind of like to have a better variance of, do we do
Well-
15 or do we do 20? And I think we could possibly know that when he.
what would
did
you
the
like me
change.
to, what would you like the next version to look like, 15 or 20 down? What would you like me to, which one would you like to see?
As far as the Fund 2,
I mean, if you guys would like me to,
So
to
if
do
you
that.
wanted to, I think if we said, you can go ahead and publish, we're not gonna exceed these levies. And then he's going to come up and give us a scenario, whether we wanted 15 or 20 cents. After he makes all the changes that we're looking at for department heads, if there was many changes, I don't know if there is many on Fund 2. And then
I don't. know
we
if it-
could have a final,
yeah.
we could have a clarity in knowing for sure what that balance would look like. Is that
so
correct?
I just need to know which one what would you like it to be?
yeah,
So
that's,
right now it's 220. You'd like it, reduce it 15?
I,
15 or 20,
I-
yeah.
I mean, in terms of the fund balance and what this is attributable to, though,
Mhm.
even if the legislature changes it, the impact of Fund 2 will be de minimis.
Yeah, so, whatever,
I mean,
I
you're
don't have
talking
that
two,
with me,
two,
but-
those,
it'll be, so $3, it'll be 100,000. Potentially. What's the
total
total for that fund?
for this fund?
Well, because it's all the valuation. So like when we projected, this fund accesses all valuation. So if that was 41 million. Sorry, I'm not sure if I can do this.
No, you're fine with it. I get what you're saying, though, that there is, could be a decrease, and I personally would feel more comfortable waiting to see what legislation kind of does, but if they have that finalized by then, I mean,
Well, that's.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
question, but
Yeah,
but we can do these levies and then reduce later. We could say 220, but then reduce later in a finalization, correct?
the 220. Yes, we need to do a max levy, resolution saying you won't ask for this much more tax dollars, and I can do that with version 1. I can create a version 2 so you can see what they are, and then and I just need to know if you want to
So-
reduce that 15
so
cents or
let's-
20 cents.
so-
I guess,
so
and
let's
then you
do-
can still adjust it, Keisha, I think is your word.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's do a version 2 at 20.
Is that a motion or?
I'll motion for it.
Okay.
I think we can reduce it to 20. I think the changes won't matter.
All right, a second.
So it's to reduce the current levy by 20 cents.
Is that? I want to make sure that I understand, Jake, what you're doing. So Mark is making a motion to go ahead and reduce it right now.
Mhm.
Okay,
Because
And
that's
so-
the only way I have to put it in to see what the tax dollar, I need to know what the levy is to see what that does for the tax dollars to project your fund balance.
but if the max, but you're not going to go ahead and post the max levy at 220.
I think I will. Because that way you have flexibility to do that. All
Okay.
it's doing.
I
is
just wanted to
saying
make
you
sure I
won't-
understood.
You
for
won't
clarity.
tax more than that. And I think we've done that one year before is actually lowered it after that. It's part of the process they did on their reform a couple years ago. So you're pledging you won't increase it late.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
No,
Okay, we had a motion by Ramey and a second by Johnner to reduce the current supplemental levy by 20 cents. for version 2. All right, McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye. Okay, is there any other items we need to discuss in regarding the budget? Do you have anything, Jake, or the board?
As long as departments turn in any adjustments for the necessary comp board or salary adjustments will be fine.
So all department heads? Jake, do we need to send out an email in regarding that?
You sure can.
Okay. I do, or
What?
or you do? Is that
I
something?
can.
Okay, I would appreciate that if you
Yep.
would.
Yep.
Otherwise, great discussion. I thank everybody for coming and visiting and, telling us and regarding their budgets. Otherwise, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.